Having the ability to make salt water in your own home for your saltwater aquarium or your reef tank is extremely important. Let me give you an example. So it's Saturday night, it's about 11 o'clock, you're getting ready to shut everything down for the night, and you realize that there's something going on with your tank, and it looks like everything is in distress. You do some checking around and you figure out that maybe there's a toxin in the water that you need to remove to ensure the health and welfare of your animals. But your fish store is closed until Wednesday morning. Making it at home completely eliminates this part of the process and makes sure that you always have what you need on hand. So how do we do it? So the very first thing that you're going to need to get started making your own saltwater at home is a good, clean source of fresh water. Most of us in this hobby run a 4, 5, or 6 stage RODI unit, and while this looks very intricate and complicated, it really isn't that bad after all. And while it's a little bit slow, it allows you to turn that water on and begin filling your water change container and then go about your day. Make sure you set an alarm though, because it's a little bit of a reefing, rite of passage to overfill this container at least once in your reef keeping, career and make a big mess on the floor. So set an alarm when you start filling up your container. Now that we have a container, we have a good, clean, freshwater source, you're going to need a couple of other things. You'll need a flow pump of some kind, you're going to need a heater of some kind, and of course you're going to need some salt and a way to measure the salinity, and then something to put salt in the container with. It doesn't really matter what it is. You probably just want to make sure that it's not something that you're going to use for your own consumption of things later on, so keep it just for the tank. So once you have your container filled to whatever your predetermined level of water change is going to be, for example, in this 55-gallon drum, mine is about a 15% water change every week. That's what I'm doing right now, and that's about how much this amount is. Yours is going to be different based on the size of your aquarium. I recommend 10% weekly, and if you want to know why, I cover that in the video that's going to be linked on the end card at the end of this one. So now we got our water in, we want to get the pump in, and we want to get the heater in, and let's let this water come up to temperature before we start adding any salt into it. This is going to take a little longer and it's going to slow down the process a little bit, but I find in my experience that this is a better sort of situation than putting the salt in the water cold and then waiting for it to warm up later on. The salt tends to dissolve a little bit faster when the water's already at temperature, and you can check the salinity a little bit sooner thereafter. Most marine salts recommend that you're going to be adding about 1/2 cup of salt per gallon of water in your container. That's a general guideline, and you are going to have to read the instructions on the salt that you have chosen, and there's a lot of them to choose from. But read those instructions and look and see what it says. Now, sometimes it might tell you grams per liter of water. You just have to do the conversions to figure out what works best for you. My salt, I use Fauna Marine salt, and it does indeed come out to about 1/2 cup per gallon. I've already pre-measured this container, so I know roughly about how much salt to put in here, but in case I overshoot it, I have enough space in the container to just add some more water to bring the salinity down to the right level. But what my preference is to undershoot it just a little bit, bring it up slowly over time, and hit that target rate of 1.025 to get put in the aquarium. Now, it's an important thing to note that the way I do this is I don't add all that salt right up front. I add about half of what I think that I'm going to need, and then I'll let that process for a little while, do its thing, maybe 30 or 45 minutes. I'll go do something else, get some lunch, come back, and then I'll add the other half of what I think I'm going to need, and that should get me close. And then I can add a little bit and a little bit and a little bit more before sneaking up right on that target measurement and making sure that it's ready to go. Now, there's several different ways that you can measure the salinity in your salt water. My preference is this analog refractometer. Once this is properly calibrated, and there is a proper way to calibrate this, and it is not RODI water, though that is a common thing that people do, it's incorrect. So using a calibration solution with something like this, or if you have an electronic salinity pen, making sure that the calibration is correct on that, measuring the salt water is very, very simple. Now, this is a great question, and I'd really like to thank my channel member for posing this question to me. If you want to become a member of the channel and support the Reef Rookies mission of respectful reef keeping, you can do that by clicking the join button right here on the home page. So a quick recap, you're going to fill your container up. You're going to get it up to temperature with a flow pump installed. You're going to start adding your salt at about half the rate that you think you're going to need. Wait a little while and test it. See how far you need to go. Add the other half that you think you need to put in there and test it again and sneak up on that measurement. Once it's all said and done, the only thing left for you to do is actually perform the water change on your tank. And if you're wondering why you should do that, watch this video on the screen right now, and it's going to tell you all the benefits of doing water changes routinely on your saltwater reef aquarium.